Yeah, welcome to Seed of Victory Foundation Premier Gala. This is the first annual dinner and dance, and the turnout has been amazing so far. Lots of things, that we have achieved already tonight, and we're going to be achieving more. So stay tuned for the next one, 2018. Here we come for another gala. So we thank you for your contribution. If you're watching today, go on to www.seedofvictoryfoundation.org to donate today. Donate. And if you want to mail out your checks, you mail out your checks in Seed of Victory Foundation, and it goes to 35B, Unit 35B, 10520 Young Street in Richmond Hill. Please go and donate. Thank you. God bless you. Bye.
My name is Jean Augustine, Augustine. I'm so very pleased tonight to be at the Seed of Victory Gala, this fundraiser for a really, really good cause. I think it's important that all of us as community take responsibility for helping those less fortunate in the world. And tonight's opportunity, or tonight is an occasion for us to really come together as community. So I'm pleased, and I think that having come tonight, I've been seeing the large turnout, that everyone who came will commit to ensuring that Seed of Victory will also have not only its first anniversary, but many, many more anniversaries.
Hi, my name is Michael, and I'm here to support Seed of Victory Foundation, a wonderful charity started by Veronica and her sisters, and it supports homeless, orphan children, widows. A lot of the money goes to Africa, but it goes all over the world as well. It's an excellent foundation, excellent charity, and I encourage everybody to support it.
Hi, everybody. My name is Liberty Silver, and I'm here to appeal to you to support the Seed of Victory Foundation. Give generously. The motherland is Africa, and the children of Africa are crying out to us. They're in need of help. $25 a month, Platinum program, can sponsor 5 children, can put and get them into school and get their supplies for them. Please help, can feed them. It is our responsibility as older people to help the youth of tomorrow, especially from the motherland of Africa and all around the world. Give generously. I do. Thank you. Bless.
You can make an impact in your generation. You can leave a mark in people's life. You can actually make sure that you are a contributor to the society. Listen to me. There is many things that are to be done, but it will take you. It will take you, and it will take your family. It will take you, and it will take your finances to make sure that you help somebody. Somebody is about to give up. Somebody doesn't have any hope. You are the hope to that person. You are a lifesaver. Wherever you are, I want you to encourage you. Here, this is the Seed of Victory Foundation. And we are here standing to see that there is a difference in somebody's life. There's a difference in an orphan's life. There's a difference in a widow's life. I thank you. My name is Mudiri Dichaba, and I'm standing here because I believe in this vision and I believe in this dream. And we will realize it together. Thank you.
Yeah. My name's Raymond Young, and first of all, I'd just like to take a minute to say thank you for watching this. But moreover, maybe take a look around you and see what you have, see what difference you can make. Tonight, we saw a group of people come together to make a difference. Maybe you could find a way in your heart and your soul to make a difference as well. We all make a difference together. Unity eliminates insecurity. Have a great night.
Hi, my name is Gary Henry. I am here at the Seed of Victory Foundation. I know the founder of it, Miss Veronica. She's a very special woman to me. The woman, she has a heart, and I had to be here because I'm one of these people who are living here today. I could have been a victim, but because of the grace of God, I'm not a victim. But I know some of the pain some of these kids are going through, and that's why I'm here. And this is a part of my passion. I also have a movement. It's called Fit for the Call. And Fit for the Call is not just to go out into the places where children can't afford to do the things that I do, or their family can't afford it because they're in villages. And we are a movement that doesn't look at color, we look at souls. And we will be partnering with Seeds of Victory and to be a part of that, because this is about us coming together and reaching out for one another and pulling up one another. So the Seeds of Victory, when you look at the word victory, victory means win. We want to win because many of these kids have been losers. But we are here today because of Seed of Victory and this movement and what's on the heart of this lady. And so we are going to partner, we're going to push forward, and we're going to keep moving because we're going to change this world one soul at a time. I thank you for your time. Sow a seed into a seed of victory, because when you sow into victory, you shall reap victory. As a man soweth, so shall he reap. Sow in the seed of victory into your life, not just...
Hello, my name is Uzo Okolo from San Diego, California. I'm the older brother to Veronica Oshodi, the founder of Seed of Victory Foundation. I would like anyone who wants to support the foundation to be aware that the foundation exists to help underprivileged children who are orphans or foster children. The focus of this foundation is to support kids who are in Africa, but obviously there are kids in other parts of the world that need help as well. So part of the proceeds from tonight's fundraising will also go to support kids in the Toronto area in Canada, and it's going to be an annual event. We expect to do this next year as well. We look forward to hosting more events like this in the future, not only in Canada but other parts of the world. Thank you very much.
First of all, I don't see how you couldn't feel something for these children when you see that film. I actually went to Nigeria several years ago, and a lot of my friends asked me, what are you doing? Why would you do that? Why would you go there? You should go on a safari. But what I wanted to do was I wanted to see the people, and I wanted to know what was happening there. So I ended up staying at a Lutheran church. And they had here how you have a clothes box where people put in their donations. At the side of this Lutheran church was a donation box, but the donations that the young women were making were babies or young toddlers because they couldn't afford to raise them. So this was the next best choice. So I did that for 6 weeks. And when I left Nigeria and I went through immigration after I had experienced what I had experienced, my eyes, I couldn't stop crying for about a minute. And the immigration officer came over to me and he goes, "You can come back, oh, you can come back." And I said, "I don't know when I can come back." Because when you go to Africa and you experience those kind of experiences, they stay with you forever. And you feel like you've almost left a part of you there that you have to keep repeatedly going back to. So the motherland is called Africa, and the children of the motherland are crying out for our help. So this is my bottom line to you. Tonight before you leave, put your money where your mouth is. See those small pamphlets there? It costs barely nothing to feed 4 children and to get school supplies for them. You guys, some of us spend it on coffee at Tim Hortons or Starbucks if you stush. So please, please, just donate. Don't worry, it will go to the right place. So give generously. And if you don't have a lot, give a little. Volunteer. Find out where the orphanage is, buy a ticket, and go check out and see what really is going on there. Because if you do like I did, you will see help is needed. Help is needed. So after saying that, I'd like to sing a song for everybody, for all the great heroes in this audience, including Veronica. There's so many. Jean Augustine, the Honorable Dr. Jean Augustine. And it's just for all you people who do so much for the community and for across seas. I've been so many places in my life and times. I've sung a lot of songs. I've made some bad rhymes. I've acted out my life in stages with 10,000 people watching. But we're alone now, and I'm singing this song to you. I know your image of me is what I hoped it would be. I treated you unkindly, darling, can't you see? There's no one more important to me, darling, can't you see through me? But we're alone now, and I'm singing this song to you. You taught me precious secrets of a real love, asking nothing. You came out in front when I was hiding. And now I'm so much better. And if my words don't come together, listen to the melody, 'cause my love is in there hiding. I love you in a place where there's no space or time. I love you for my life. You're a friend of mine. When my life is over, remember when we were together. We were alone, and I was singing this song to you. We were alone, and I was singing this song to you. Well, Lord, I was singing this song to you. Somebody scream! Oh, sure, now let's show this for you. Thank you very much. Give generously, please. Scream again. Thank you, Veronica. Great job this evening. Wonderful job.
I read through his bio and I enjoyed it myself. Ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, give a big round of applause for Mr. Raymond Young.
Well, it's always hard to speak when people are eating, because that seems to be the focus. But I'll do my best to share some thoughts with you. What an incredible event. Would you agree? Yeah. And we live in a society today that's really in crisis. And I think so few of us understand that there's a crisis today. And we come to beautiful events like this, and we live in a wonderful country like ours, and we forget that there's people in trouble right beside us. Never mind around the world. And when I was asked to be part of it tonight, I openly accepted the invitation for a lot of reasons. Every person in this room has had a journey in their life, and they'll continue on that journey. And we all know this, yes? And, you know, as I stand kind of before you and I look around the room, and I kind of see the different people that are here, and we all have diverse backgrounds, beliefs, religions, upbringings. Some of us were born one way and raised another way and so on. But here's the reality. We all want to have the best possible life, and we do want to make a difference. And here we are in a society today that is so disconnected. You know, when David was up here and he's talking about social media and how we communicate and how everything else was supposed to make everything else easier. Has anybody's life got easier? You know, when I was growing up as a kid in the 70s, you guys have one of those phones in the house with a long cord on it, right? So that you could decapitate your sister when you were on the phone and she came through the kitchen. Was I the only one that ever did that? Okay. You didn't know my sister. But I'm sharing that with you because when that phone would ring, there wasn't a person in the house that didn't say, I got it! I got it! And everybody ran for the phone, right? Now your cell phone rings, you go, don't answer it! I don't know that number, I'm not talking to that guy. Is that right or wrong? You see, guys, and I'm talking to you like this so maybe I can get your attention. We can't change the world unless we recognize what's wrong with it. You know, God rest my mom's soul, she was this beautiful woman, this short, little, chubby Irish woman. But unfortunately, she was an alcoholic. And I remember going to our family doctor and saying, you know, my mom needs help. And they said, well, you can't help her until she comes here. There's no help for her. And I guess if I could give you anything tonight, it's awareness. You know, I've been in business for myself for 30 years. I've done so many things. And I've also learned the difference between being broke and being poor. Broke people pay bills late. Poor people can't buy food. And I know that because there was 2 years of my life I was poor, where I literally had to go to pawn shops to buy groceries for my children. And you know, I get all of that, and I understand that journey that some people go through. And you sit in a room like this, and you come here because it's a gala, and you eat fine food, and there's entertainment. And the question is, are you aware of what it's really for? You know, by the time I was 25 years old, I was a cash millionaire. At 28, I was bankrupt and moved back in with my family. At 33, I was a cash millionaire again because I figured out you can control anything you choose to. There's nothing more powerful on this planet than a made-up mind. Imagine if the communities of the world united. And unity eliminates insecurity, and we think about it and we talk about it. But who's really doing it truthfully? You know, why are there kids on the street? Why is that happening? You know why? Because we're not aware. We're pretending it's not really happening. See, my mom wasn't an alcoholic in my mom's mind. She wasn't aware. And all I'm saying, if I can bring anything to you tonight, with me taking this time with you, is we need to create a new awareness. You know, a couple of years ago, I started getting involved in the nonprofit space, and I couldn't believe what was going on. It's a different world today. See, I was brought up in a home where you went to church every Sunday, and you were reminded about the importance of donating. And now today, people don't go to church. So the kids aren't learning to donate. So those millennials today don't know how to do it. Do you guys understand what I'm saying? So who's going to teach them? Social media? You're going to tweet about it? That's not going to work. Guys, we got to get out there and make a difference. See, that's what it's going to take. You know, there's 170,000 nonprofits in Canada. Do you also know they're the second largest economy in Canada, next to gas and oil? And they're failing. Because the young people won't donate. Because they've lost their way. So are we going to show them the way and start to acknowledge the reality of the world? Think about it, 7 billion people on this planet. If the 4 billion that have money donated a little bit of it, we end world poverty. Period. I'm telling you this because I know with everything in me, for once somebody has got to step up and fight for those who don't have a voice. That's the world we need to be in today. Are you not sick and tired of reading about something or hearing about something, but it goes on deaf ears? Then you click on Netflix like it never happened. It's time to change. Do you guys understand what I'm saying to you? And this isn't just some motivational speech to get you to, donate money or do something like that. It's got to be bigger than that. It's got to be continual. It's got to be weekly, monthly, daily if necessary. That's how we change the world. I get it because I've been through all sides of it. I love the quote from Bill Gates. If you're born poor, it's not your fault. If you die poor, it's your fault. So we need to be the voice to help those people that can't get out of it. When I was a young boy at 4 years old, I was in a horrible house fire. And my mom and her best friend were on the main floor. The basement is a burning inferno. And my mom's best friend that owns a house with 2 children went screaming out of the house and left her 2 children in the basement to die. My mom comes running down the stairs, and I remember it like yesterday. I can see the smoke, I can smell it, but I'm trapped. And the only way to get to my mom is to run through the fire. And she first finds this little girl, Lana, and throws her up the stairs. And then this little boy, Derek, and she doesn't find her own son. And she's screaming for me to come to her. And I guess I learned I was way more afraid of a short, chubby Irish woman than fire. I ran through the fire, and I was supposed to die. They gave me 24 hours to live. And I guess I disagreed. I spent 6 months in the hospital, had plastic surgery till I was 14. And I'm sharing this with you to go back to my mom and her best friend. You never know what you're going to do when fear shows up. You never know. But we need more people fighting for the ones trapped in the fire. We need more people fighting for the ones who can't fight for themselves. And we need to start to make a difference in this world. You sat in this room, you showed up. You're willing. But now you got to go get somebody else to be willing with you. It takes one to get one, to get one, to get one. After I read this economic report by 2 Canadian economists about the non-profit society, I've spent the last 2 years on a journey to make a difference in the non-profit world. And I'm very successful. It says in the book, I'm the vice president of a company called Combined Insurance. And that's my background, so I obviously understand money. I've been in the financial services world for 2 decades, run 21 brokerage offices, managed hundreds of millions of dollars, had hundreds of thousands of clients. I really know money. I understand economy very well. And the founder of that company was a man named W. Clement Stone. And W. Clement Stone has actually helped change our world in so many ways. He actually trained and mentored a guy named Jack Canfield, that most of you guys will know from Chicken Soup for the Soul, who's influenced billions of people. His books are in 40 languages. He owns 7 Guinness World Book records because some guy that started an insurance company mentored him. So what could we do? He was one guy that started something in 1922. This is a world of community and connection. We're just not using it for good. We use it for evil. Everybody wants to post what they had for breakfast on Facebook, but not what they want to do to make a difference today. They want to make a comment about how their husband's a jerk on Facebook. I just don't think that's cool, but whatever. Do you know what I'm saying? Why are we not using this technology to talk about the good we can do, the difference we can make, the people and lives we can change, the people and lives we will save? Never mind change. See, it's unity that eliminates insecurity, and I know I keep saying that because I have no other way to help you understand. what's possible with a room of 100 or 200 people. The world can change with a group this size. You can. All of you leave this building today and you talk to 5 people and get them to talk to 5 people. But it's got to be passionate. See, we're not excited anymore about life, are we? All we do is whine and complain about what we don't have. More. What are we talking about? Man, it's ridiculous. Man, when I was a 20-year-old, I was being an auto mechanic. That was actually when people drove broken cars. I could walk in that parking lot, we won't see a car 5 years old. My children had laptops and cell phones in grade 6. What the heck was I thinking? Man, they needed bicycles without helmets so they could fall down and get hurt and realize things hurt. You know? Guys, all I'm saying is that when you leave here today, we gotta leave here a little bit different and we gotta become the voice. We can't speak for anybody that's not here. We've got to become the voice of change. That's all I know. You know, because of my background, and I ran calculations of what it would take in basically the world's economies that are reasonably good, not strong, reasonably good, and a few billion people all contributing just a little bit would end all world poverty. Well, that's just a message we got to get out there. You know, a guy named Bill Gates got 300 people in a room many years ago. And he said, one day, every house on the planet will have a computer. And I'm asking you to invest in me, my idea, and my business. Out of 300 people, do you know how many people joined? 11. All 11 of those people today are worth over $100 million plus. Because he had a dream. And I'm going to tell you, nothing works without a dream. Man, if you don't tell people something that happens and go, you're nuts, that'll never work, you're on the wrong track. Man, we got to tell the world that you're going to change it and you're going to be part of something great. And that's where this starts maybe for you tonight. Maybe. Or it'll just be a place where you have some really great food. I don't know. I can't speak for you. All I know is much is given, much is expected. And I'm a firm believer of that. And I firmly believe that God put me through a bankruptcy, a divorce, and all kinds of other things so I could understand. I'm telling you right now. I'm telling you. Mother Teresa took a vow of poverty, but her organization had $500 million and 8 jets. Because if you want to feed the poor, you got to get the food there. Do you understand? See, there's nothing wrong with being wealthy. What's wrong with being wealthy is being wealthy and not helping other people get through their tough times. That's what's wrong with it. So tonight, on this November 11th, this Remembrance Day, why don't we unite as one room at one time in Ontario, Canada, to say we are going to take a cause on and change the world as we know it. Who's with me? Guys, have a great night. Thanks for hearing me out.
Give him a big round of applause. That's some fire right there. This is dynamic. My goodness. He almost turned me into a co-signer. That is unbelievable. My man right there. Wow, he was amazing. He was amazing. Ladies and gentlemen, please, wow. I'm gonna need a glass of water. This guy is hot. I mean, I've been all over the world to do comedy and hear people speak, and my friend, when you open a church, you'll have people baptized by the minute. That is unbelievable. Never heard a rich man preach like that. That is awesome. Please, ladies and gentlemen, continue to enjoy your meal. We're going to clear this and have your main course, and we're going to still have a few quick speakers and a beautiful musical rendition by our good friend, Miss Liberty Silver. Bon appetit again. Enjoy your meal.
How you doing, guys? Got quite the event behind us. Music. What a glorious, glorious day. I'm telling you, this charity, the Seeds of Victory, is amazing. Amazing, helping people. There's been such an incredible vibration and movement within. You can probably hear it behind me, the poor children that they're helping over and over again. Blessings to them all, reaching out. You wouldn't believe the commitment from people in there. Come and be a part of it. Come and dance with us. Come and make music together. Come and help. All the children in the world need your help. We should be there. Please take care.
Yes, I'm here, to support the Seed of Victory because it's a very great organization, which is actually established to help orphans and women in underprivileged, conditions around the world. And I think it's great to see Canadians come out here today to support this great cause. The speakers were amazing. The entertainers were awesome. And I think this is the beginning of something really great. It's just the first gala, and it's just so amazing. I can imagine what the next ones will be. So I'm really pleased and happy that I was part of this inaugural gala, and I look forward to many, many, many years of great, work, not just in Africa, but around the world to help orphans and widows. Thank you.
Hi, my name's James. Welcome to the Seed of Victory Foundation. People helping people. Powerful stuff. Helping the children. Amen. Hallelujah. God bless and good luck. Open up your pocket. Give. Help. Help the world. Help a child. Grow. God bless. Have a blessed night.
As I said, ladies and gentlemen, to start the evening off, we are going to have a wonderful rendition. It's a saxophonist by the young name of Mr. Federico Medeiros. Let's give him a big round of applause.
I give myself Closest friends. I was 31 years old when I lost my father, and 11 months later, at the age of 32, I lost my mother, and I was orphaned for a second time. The night of my mother's murder, there were several doctors who thought that it was very possible that I would also become a widow that evening, but that's later in my story. I understand what it is to want to belong. As a young orphan, I didn't have the words and I couldn't describe my loneliness or my innate fear of being abandoned. I was 4 years old when I voiced those fears to my parents, that they would grow tired of me and one day they would leave me again and not return. How does a 4-year-old understand that? My profession, immersed in the world of psychology as a therapist, has shed some light on how we as little humans innately feel the need, the wanting to be loved and to be safe. I grew up afraid of being abandoned. When I had to leave my home in the country and move into the city for university, it triggered that loneliness yet again. I would walk by the homes in the dark winter nights with the lights illuminating the families living inside, and I would dream that one day I'd get to be inside a home with my own family and I would belong there. I understand what it is to want something. At 18 years of age, feeling like a displaced country kid living in a city, I dreamt that one day I'd have a family of my own and we'd have a place to call home. I wouldn't be alone. I wouldn't be afraid. I would belong with my own people. How does a child move from that kind of wanting to actually living her dream? And what happens when our dreams come true, only to have them shattered by life-threatening illness? A phone call in the middle of the night that someone we love is no longer with us. The loss of a career, the ending of a marriage, or some other upset that turns our worlds upside down. I want us to explore 3 areas of practice tonight that can move us from the dreaming to living our destiny. And if our lives have been hit by a personal tsunami, how to use these practices to get us back into our destiny. Before I unpack these tools, I want to talk for a moment about our own personal belief system, or what I like to describe to my clients as our own personal BS. Here's the truth I have learned. It doesn't matter the hand that we're given, the family I was born into, the physical, emotional, the mental challenges I encounter along my life, the situations that I've had to face as a child or as an adult. Some of the plot lines of our stories are not within our control, but we ultimately are the narrators of our story. We may not have chosen the chapter headings we were handed, but we get to write the way that story unfolds and how we choose to respond within our story. And nothing determines the outcome of our stories more than how we see ourselves and the beliefs we hold about ourselves. Amy Cuddy, a social psychologist and best-selling author, tells of her own experience working her way through a traumatic brain injury that occurred in her late teens, where she lost several degrees off of her IQ ranking. And she fought her way through a graduate program, her master's degree, finally completing a PhD program, and against all odds, she ended up teaching at Harvard University, where she is today, living her dream. But she lived by this mantra: don't fake it until you make it. Fake it until you become it. Our belief system, what we choose to believe about ourselves and how we enforce that belief system by our own thoughts and words and our actions, will ultimately determine our outcomes from dream to destiny, more than the situations and challenges that we encounter along the way. So what are the tools that can equip us for all parts of that destiny journey? Gratitude, giving, and growth are the 3 tools that I want to touch on tonight that can carry us as we walk our Dream to Destiny road. I've learned much about the practice of gratitude, and I've seen it make a profound difference both in my life and the life of my clients. The act of giving thanks provides and improves our mental health, and it fosters resilience. The tool of practicing gratitude has been heavily researched. In his book, The Upward Spiral, Alex Korb explains how the art of practicing gratitude can rewire our brain, and in doing so increase a healthy production of hormones and endorphins like serotonin and dopamine. Initially, when I introduced the practice of gratitude to my clients, it's met with some skepticism and some resistance. I'll often tell my clients, well, listen, give me 3 weeks of practice before we put this tool down, and usually they agree. One client in particular with a strong presentation of depression reported to me as I introduced this that she was determined to do her homework faithfully in order to prove me wrong. The first week she did ask, as she reported in, and she asked, is this really necessary? She said every night she put down her 3 things she was grateful for, and every morning, although some days she had a hard time coming up with 6 things in a 24-hour period that she was grateful for. She was adamant that it was labor intensive, and she was challenged to even come up with those 6 things. However, research tells us that we don't need to come up with things we're grateful for. Just the simple act of engaging our gratitude mindset helps change the firings in our brain, lowering our stress hormones and elevating healthy cortisol production. So by the 3rd week, things were starting to change for my client despite her best efforts. Something was shifting for her. Because she'd been working at being grateful, she was starting to see things that she was grateful for without even having to be part of the assignment. She didn't even realize she was starting to gaze up and not down. In feeling gratitude, she was elevating her mood, and as her mood lifted, there was more to be grateful for. She said, it's the strangest thing. Sometimes before noon, I've already come up with my 6 things. And one day, she came into my office and she said something incredibly strange happened. I said, what's that? She said, I didn't even know I could do this. I said, what did you do? She said, I whistled. I'm happy. What is that? Gratitude positions to lift ourselves up, to become mindful of small glimpses of beauty that we would have been blind to before. It helps us see that one flash of color in an otherwise gray or dreary, difficult day. When walking out our destiny, sometimes our dreams can take a major hit, and the practice of gratitude can help us stay the course. Our second tool is the practice of giving. Maya Angelou, the famous African-American poet and activist, said, you shouldn't go through life with a catcher's mitt in both hands. You need to be able to throw something back. We are told that giving is a selfless act, but that statement does not really explain what happens to us when we give, be it our time, our talent, our monetary resources. When we give, good things happen to us as well. There's a physiological response that happens to us when we give. Our brain pleasure systems and reward centers light up when we give. We get a boost of the feel-good endorphins, the same ones associated with a runner's high. And oxytocin, that feel-good hormone that floods our bodies during sex, that's later, I know that's later, it's also released when we give. These endorphins and hormones reduce stress levels in our bodies and make us feel more connected to others. We're not created to be alone. Humans are the one species, or they're one of the species, not the one, but one of the species that cannot thrive in isolation of itself. When we give, we're connected to the purpose that is larger than simply the sum total of ourselves. At a very young age, I grew up feeling like my security was about taking care of me. Having experienced trauma and lack at a young age, I felt strongly that being safe and taking care of myself was dependent on having money in the bank account. I could count on no one else, and I felt comfortable having money, numbers in my savings that had lots of zeros behind them. But giving money away, just for the joy of it, was a foreign concept. However, at the age of 18, I began a faith journey. And in my faith practice, I wanted to get it right, so I started giving. And it was going fairly well until the year that my life exploded with death and illness and murder. And suddenly, I was getting way more than I could possibly give back. It felt uncomfortable. It seemed strange that during one of the darkest times of my life, the diamond of other people's kindness and generosity burned the brightest. I remember coming out of my home one day, heading to the hospital to visit my husband, and a man I did not know was cutting my lawn. Strangers were showing up, cleaning my house, doing my laundry. Food was arriving at my door that I didn't cook. People were showing up and taking my children out for ice cream. So many acts of utter generosity and kindness, I was beside myself. How could I ever give back? Would I spend the rest of my life trying to even the score? There's nothing I could give back that could replace or put a monetary number to repay someone for loving on my kids that were scared and heartsick. I was tormented in how I could ever begin to even the score. And then I learned something. That generosity is not about numbers, it's not about scores, it's not even about giving back. It's about giving forward. If I see an opportunity, I will take it. And here's the truth. Being kind to people costs us nothing. And yet, what an impact it could have on someone who's having a rough go. As our lives slowly began to stabilize, I purposed that if the door of opportunity opened to the practice of giving, I was going to walk through that door, period. And I am so grateful for the opportunities that have presented themselves. Last year, coming home from Europe, as my husband and I were settling into our seats on the airplane, about to take off from Paris, we'd gotten up super early to catch our flight from Barcelona. So we're settling in, we're ready for a good movie, a nice nap, when this beautiful woman with a lovely smile and sad eyes sits down in our row. So we exchange pleasantries, and she asks me where we've been, and I explain how we've just come from our first childless vacation in 25 years, and it's been wonderful. When I asked her where she'd come from, she pauses before she tells me she's come from a funeral. Her mother, who died suddenly, unexpectedly, in what was the prime of her life. And I took her hand, and I told her how very, very sorry I was. I told her it doesn't matter how old we are never, never ready to say goodbye to our mothers. She asked me, have you lost your mother? I told her that I had. And with the most piercing gaze, she asked me, how? How did you lose your mother, and how did you get through it? And I told her. And for the next 7 hours, that lovely, beautiful woman and I, well, we talked, we laughed, we cried, we prayed. I mean, we had us church on that airplane. Since then, a rich friendship has unfolded. We've talked on those tough firsts, like Christmas Day, Mother's Day. And we've connected on ordinary days when grief hits your heart like a cement wall and you can't breathe. And while we come from different mothers, we are no less soul sisters that have bonded through a beautiful merging of roads that collided through a common bond of grief. And what we've experienced has been a sacred friendship that's enriched our lives. A door opened up to give forward, and I walked through that door, and it is that door that's led me here tonight. Winston Churchill said, we make a living by what we get. We make a life by what we give. The practice of giving creates a framework on our roads from dream to destiny that takes us further than if we traveled with a catcher's mitt in both hands. There's a richness that comes back to us when we live our lives practicing giving on purpose and with intention. And finally, our third tool on this destiny road is the tool of growth, the commitment to keep growing through the good and the bad and the ugly, to learn and grow some more. And whatever you do, do not waste your pain. I say this to couples that are going through divorce, to children that have walked through traumas, through individuals that have lost a loved one, through successful people who find themselves bankrupt. Do not waste your pain. It's one of the best fertilizers of our life. On September 30th, 1998, I was walking into my own supersized delivery of growth fertilizer. It had been a tough day. I had to call a friend to help me take my husband to the hospital. He was too weak to walk, and I couldn't lift him. He was so very sick. He needed to be in an isolated ward, but there were no beds. So they put him in a broom closet for the day, and there we sat with heart monitors and IVs and every machine beeping that possibly could, until they could clear out a room for him in the intensive wing. He was very unwell. I'd been nursing him at home since his bone marrow harvest, but he was not recovering properly. And after spending most of the day in the ICU broom closet, he was finally admitted into his own room. I'd called his parents to come and sit with him, and I called a friend to come and drive me home so I could be with my children and spend the evening with them. I was exhausted, and I just wanted to love on my kids and regain my footing. I was planning on going back to the hospital later on that evening after my kids were tucked in for the night. But none of that happened. Because that night, police officers arrived in my home to tell me that my mother was dead. And I thought, that is the worst possible thing ever. And then they said, there's more. And I thought, how can there be more? My mother, one of my best friends, is dead. My mother, who has her own room in our home with a name on the door, she's no longer here. My husband's in critical condition. How can there be more? And in the heavy weighted silence, it was as if hell itself opened up. And I asked the question, did somebody hurt my mother? And they affirmed that yes, someone has hurt my mother, and her death is being treated as a homicide. 2 young children who were still grieving the loss of their papa, a husband in critical condition, and a mother who was dead, who had been murdered. The first thing that I want to say, that I need to say, is that I'm thankful that I have a faith system that is not something that I dabble with on Easter Sunday or Christmas Mass, but a faith system that is at the core of my being, and all my life is orientated around it. And as my feet buckled beneath me and I found myself sliding involuntarily to the floor, I heard a calm voice say right inside of me, get up. You are not finished yet. Get up. And so I got up. And I'm so thankful that I did not have the luxury of falling apart. There were details that needed to be addressed immediately. They were time sensitive and not sympathetic to afford me time to have a personal breakdown. And I am grateful, sincerely grateful for that. We called the hospital to see if my mother and father-in-law could remain with my husband that night, and I was told by the doctors that my husband was so sick that if he heard the news of my mother's death, it would kill him. We needed a plan. My husband is a police officer. Police filled our home as my husband's work friends and colleagues flooded us with a swell of support. And someone got word, and suddenly there were policemen guarding the door to my husband's hospital room. And someone snuck in and unplugged the television in his room so that my in-laws wouldn't find out of my mom's murder on the television. And I began to prepare to do the hardest thing that I've ever done, which was to tell my 2 beautiful babies, aged 6 and 7, that their grandmother was gone. And that night, as I lay on our bed with 2 very broken-hearted children, one on each side of me, I prayed to God that He would tenderly hold His pain, would hold their pain for them until they were old enough to walk this grief themselves. I just want to say that my core, my faith system, has not disappointed me. And I want to say that my kids are amazing. And my kids are healthy. My kids are whole, and my kids are strong. And that is something that I am so, so grateful for. Immediately following my mother's funeral, I dropped out of my university programs, and we began to grieve. And we healed. And a miracle met us when my husband, against all medical odds, beat the less than 10% chance he was given, and he survived. And he healed. He's here tonight, by the way. And we put one foot in front of the other. And I made so many mistakes that year. Times when I wanted to rush my pain and not walk through it. Times when I couldn't find the words to even speak for what I needed. But it was a time of amazing growth. Growth is not about doing things perfectly. That's right. It is about being present and showing up for your life. So, as a family, we grieved together and we healed together. And it was messy, and it was horrible, and it was beautiful. It was perfectly imperfect. And as my husband grew stronger and started taking over his former roles in our lives, he started suggesting things, like maybe I should go back to school, even if it was just to finish what I started. So I went back to school, and I graduated from university, and then I went to work. And then we grew, and we started doing things we would have never done had we not walked through our pain and been open to growing through our pain. And I began to speak to women and organizations about grief and loss and trauma. And my husband pursued a position with the Winnipeg Police Department, where he ran a crisis trauma wellness center for the department's 1,500 members. And my therapeutic practice grew. And I learned more. And my husband wrote a book, and I learned more, and we learned more. And he traveled to conferences in Canada and the United States, and we grew. We learned some things. And people showed up in our lives and told us their stories of pain and heartache, and we grew, and we learned. And we had the privilege of walking alongside others in their journeys of pain and loss. One day, while my husband was running the trauma crisis unit, he came home and he said, "I am so pumped. You'd never guess what happened to me today." I said, "I don't know. You got involved in a high-speed chase." "No." "Oh, way better, way better." He'd met with a few police officers who had gone through a very difficult case. And at the culmination of their meeting, he said, "You'd never guess what I got." I said, "What?" "Hugs. 2 hugs from policemen." Held up his fingers. 2 hugs. We are privileged. Privileged to live this life. We only get one chance. And if we're not growing, we're not really living. This life is such a rich opportunity for each of us. Moving from dream to destiny is not just about wanting something more, it's about being brave enough to show up, to move from the wanting to going through that movement to action towards those things. Gratitude, giving, and growing are some tools that can help us move from wanting to living the dream, and keep living the dream, even though our lives go through seasons of hard. It's such a privilege to be here tonight. Seed of Victory Foundation. Veronica is living out her destiny. Let's put it together for Veronica and this foundation and this evening that is birthed through pain. Even as she grieves, we are here because of that pain. And so often, it is out of our pain that beauty comes also. I am so honored to be here tonight. Thank you for letting me share my story.
Wow. Wow. I can only say wow. One more round of applause for her, ladies and gentlemen, please. It's an emotional night, very emotional night. We're going to make one quick change at this time. I think it's very good that we do this because we want to make sure that everyone knows why we're here. So without further ado, after her, we're going to be graced with the beautiful vocals of my dear friend, Miss Liberty Silver. Ladies and gentlemen, the reason why we're all here tonight, let's give her a big round of applause. Miss Veronica, the founder of Seeds of Victory. A big round of applause. This is not easy to put together, but you've got a wonderful meal. Her work never stops. So she's going to let you know how much she appreciates you.
Thank you so much, everyone. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests. I want to thank all of my speakers. It's wonderful to have Mr. Raymond Young give us a great speech. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you, Councillor David West, for your amazing, amazing speech. Thank you, Dagmar Oyi. Awesome speech there. Thank you so much, my beautiful sister from another mom. Sylvia, all the way from Manitoba. Thank you so much. Thank you, Paul, for your support. And I cannot wait to hear the Honorable Dr. Jean Augustine's speech next. I'm excited. Thank you so much. I want to just say thank you, everyone, for honoring the invite to be here this evening. I welcome you all to the very, very first annual fundraising gala dinner and dance. It wasn't easy putting this together, but God was, amazing helping us. I want to thank all of my volunteers, everyone that supported, every one of you that made the time to be here. I appreciate you from the depth of my heart. The theme, From Dream to Destiny, was not a coincidence. It actually came by inspiration. And this is not even scripted. This is something I say from my heart. I was watching a program on TV that day, and they were talking about the Joseph story in the Bible, how he moved from the prison to the palace. He had a dream, and he never gave up on that dream, in spite of his challenges. From that prison, he moved to the palace, and he lived out his dream. And I was like, okay, so God, what are you saying? And he put it in my spirit and said to me, through inspiration from the Word of God, he said, these kids that have a dream, on the privileged kids, they have dreams, but we need to move them into their destiny. So you and I, everyone in this room, will help to move these kids that they're waiting for us at the end of the spectrum to be helped. We need to move them from that dream into their destiny. And I know we can do it together. I know we can make it work. And supporting, just like Raymond said, you heard the story. It's not by coincidence. You have to make up your mind to want to help someone. It comes from your within. It comes from your core. You're not taught how to give. You're not taught how to help. It has to be a passion. It has to be something you want to do. I had something written down, but you know what? I just said, let me just go on script and let me just speak as I'm led. I just want to say thank you, every one of you. Honestly, you have no idea how much I appreciate each and every one of you. And I took the time. I said to myself, I would rather be happy when you all individually are happy first. I want to make sure that everyone in this room, when you walk out of here, you will leave here with a changed mindset. That mindset that I want to help someone. I don't know these kids, myself, but I want to help these ones. And I've met some of them, and I've made up my mind that I want to, reach out and help them all over the globe. And I know that we can take this to the next level. Every one of us, we can make it happen. We can make it work. Whether you know them by just photograph or by picture or by a phone call or you hear their voice, but you want to say to yourself, I want to say to myself, and I say, oh gosh, these kids, they don't have shoes to wear, they don't have good clothes to put on, but I want to still reach out to them. So that's why we're here. So if we're ready, Moses, you want to put up the little short clip that we have made. The short film is just to help to understand the purpose why we're here tonight. It's actually about the people we're helping back in Africa, the last Hope Orphanage. That's why we're here to raise the funds. So if the short documentary is ready, we would like to play it and to have it going. So as we wait for that to get set up, it's been an amazing journey. It's been wonderful, and we have been privileged to get the support. We have a team back in Africa that is helping out these kids, doing everything and getting it, set up and getting to go. And we have a lot of lineups of events that we want to have ready for them. And we're also partnering with
Seed of Victory Foundation.
Sorry about that. So we have a few other organizations here that we're partnering with to help foster homes here in Canada as well. So we would like to fund children, intellectually gifted ones, to scholarships. We want to give them scholarship grants for those that cannot afford to go to good schools. We want to also fund them and help them too. So these are part of the things that we want to do as part of our pipeline projects. So we will wait and let's have the clip playing. Thank you so much. Once again, I want to thank everyone for coming. Thank you, and thank you. God bless you all. Thank you so much.
The Seed of Victory Foundation is a non-for-profit organization that aims to extend a helping hand to orphans, neglected children, and widows living in poverty across the globe. We're not just a foundation, but a family that is rooted in love and compassion, that strives to build upon the potential of those entrusted onto our care. We believe that everyone has the potential to grow into victorious leaders who can achieve their dreams and overcome the barrier of poverty. Thinking back to our childhood, our parents, Susan Agoyibo and Emmanuel Okolo, raised 6 children in a 2-bedroom home, and by no means was that an easy task. Although they didn't have much, they used what they had to take care of us and countless other children in our neighborhood who were left to fend for themselves in the tough streets of Nigeria. Our home was considered a transitional point for destiny by those who knew us. We have watched many children who otherwise would have been counted out, forgotten, and forsaken grow up to be influential leaders. Those same individuals have credited a large part of their success to the love, care, and devotion shown by our parents. After the sudden passing of our father, our mother Susan, who became a widow at the age of 32, never remarried and was left alone to take care of an ever-growing family with 6 children for a very long time. As challenging as it was, the satisfaction of witnessing the transformation of children in our community as they made progress in their endeavors over the years brought so much joy and fulfillment to our mom till the day of her passing. This foundation was birthed through our parents' visions, and we need to strive to keep it alive and continue to recognize the importance of supporting underprivileged children. In addition to this, we have broadened the scope of the vision to include consistent support to the widows who, like our mother, often struggle to raise their children alone. Through the generous support of our sponsors, the Seed of Victory Foundation continues to build upon the legacy of our parents. With our official branch in Canada, we have now expanded our doors and have become a global organization with branches in Nigeria, Holland, USA, very soon in Kenya, and South Africa. With your continual support, we can provide daily essentials to thousands of children and widows in various countries all over the world in efforts to create sustainable change. Our focus is directed towards 6 important areas: early childhood care and development, childhood protection, educational scholarship grant, school, health and nutrition, adolescent development, shelter, and emergencies. All initiatives are aimed at ensuring the gradual development of children into self-sufficient adults. Some of the key programs that will allow us to provide ongoing support to the community are scholarship and grants to gifted children, anger management workshop for our youth and career path workshops, along with mentorship programs.
We are very happy with you, and we have become, from today, we have become friends of you people, okay? So we have brought something, just a little token to celebrate the Children's Day with you, alright? So on behalf of Seed of Victory Foundation, I hereby present to you this gift, okay?
Tonight's gala is in support of raising funds for orphans residing at the Last Hope Orphanage in Nigeria, many of whose living conditions before arriving at the orphanage were far below human standards. Leaders of the orphanage continue to do what they can to feed, clothe, shelter, and protect all the children under their care.
In fact, some of these children, they are deprived of their lectures. They are subjects in the schools. At that point, we are able to pay for their school fees on time. The Lagos State government has not given us scholarship to train them. And some of these private schools, they don't give us scholarship, free education at all. So at times when we go there to pick them, they will tell us that they were in the hall there, people that are not paid. At times they tell us that we should not bring them home. They are not happy. And these children, we need to bring them up, to guide them, to protect them, and to hinder them from thinking back to their own life. Many of them are mature, they know what to bring them here. So they don't want them to be thinking or to be isolated at all in the society, especially in school. Academically, we want them to be trained to get to the level of university. Even in the University of Lagos State and other states, they deny them. We have to pay for their school fees all the time.
But with very limited resources, it's becoming more difficult to provide for these precious children.
The challenges are many of them are visible. Lack of a lot of accommodation for them, like this day that we are here, that there is no space for them. We have playing materials like they can use to play, to do a lot of things, but there is no space for them. And concerning their school fees, their education career, their food, clothing, and other things, Everything is just in the hands of God.
Destiny Helpers Initiative is a mentorship program that will address the specific needs of children and adolescents. Feed the Children Food Drive aims to provide a consistent supply of nutritious food to orphanages across the globe. Are you ready to take the next step in providing much-needed resources to orphans, neglected children, and widows? If your answer is yes, the Seed of Victory Foundation welcomes you to become a part of our family.
Something about children's potential. Children don't have a home to call their own. Children have no idea what the future is going to be like. Children who have been denied the right of love, of family. These are children that may not have any form of education, but you're watching this and you're getting inspired. And all we want you to do right now is to please extend your hand of love, extend your hand of cheerfulness to the Seed of Victory Foundation.
With your generous support, together we will raise future leaders, one person at a time. You can become a sponsor today and change many lives with your generous gift and donation.
They don't have good housing, there's no good education, even the medical area is lacking, even in terms of clothing. And that is why we are here with these children to offer them a better life, so that they will be great leaders of tomorrow. Amongst these children are bundle of talents.
Do you prefer to support the Seed of Victory in another way? Kindly fill out the brochure to sponsor a child today. For online donations, please visit www.seedofvictoryfoundation.org/donate. All checks are payable to Seed of Victory Foundation. Mailing address 35B-10520 Yonge Street, Richmond Hill, Ontario, L4C 3C7, Canada.
Thank you very much. One more round of applause for that video presentation. I hope it touched each and every one of you as it touched me. Mr. Counselor, Mr. David West. Big round of applause for him.
Okay, just a small correction. My wife did not say I look good. That would be way too much to ask. She's not here, but don't tell her that. So thank you and welcome. And I have to say before I get started here that I found out that Jean Augustine was going to be here tonight. And as a fairly new person in politics, and knowing the experience that Miss Augustine, Dr. Augustine, has had, I feel a little bit like I'm kind of like the opening band for the Rolling Stones, but that's okay. It's an honor. I would like to start off by thanking Veronica. I was very honored when you had asked me to speak tonight. I must admit I didn't know a lot about Seed of Victory, but I was intrigued by even the very title of the foundation, and I was very intrigued by this whole idea of something starting from something and growing to something else, and I think that's really great. And I was also very impressed with the whole idea of community and supporting a group in a community that needs support, and that's actually what I'd like to talk a little bit about tonight. So, I've been interested in the idea of community, I guess, for the better part of my life. And I guess maybe that this interest was one of the driving forces to inspire me to want to become a municipal councillor in Richmond Hill. I truly believe that building community is an important part of my responsibility as a citizen and as an elected representative. And I guess when you think about it, most people think of municipal government as the folks that keep the potholes filled and the garbage collected and the parks maintained and the drinking water coming out of your faucet. And that's all true. Municipal government does do all that and a lot more. In fact, to pay for all of those services, we always collect those ever popular property taxes. Said no one ever. The real value of a place, I think, is fundamentally about the collective connections that people share with each other, and all of the municipal services that we offer are just really the foundation on top of which we build our great communities. The parks and the skating rinks are important for many reasons, but in my mind, the main reason that we provide these build places is so that people have a place to come together to connect. Throughout recorded history, it's clear we all do better when we cooperate and live together in peace. Great civilizations do not rise when people are living separate lives, and we do not accomplish great things when a person, like for example, putting a person on the moon, when a couple of people work in parallel but never work together. We need each other for our very survival, but we also need each other beyond the basic necessities of safety, food, and shelter. Companionship and camaraderie are essential to our mental well-being, and scientists are becoming more and more aware of the importance of these interpersonal connections. You know, today we lead increasingly busy lives, and as a result, we spend a lot less time and energy developing our social connections. We don't necessarily know our neighbors, and gone are the days when a new family, moves in next door and the neighbor shows up almost immediately with a banana loaf or something to welcome to the neighborhood. We are clearly living in a global community, but as we become more connected through technology, it seems that we're increasingly living a life where the world is being divided along ethnic and cultural lines more than we're coming together despite our differences. There is civil unrest in many parts of the world, and the statements coming from some of our leaders, including most notably the current president of the USA, are good indications of this increasing trend of breaking down communities, not building up communities. So I grew up in Vaughan, Maple to be precise, and I'm a real world traveler. I think I've moved a grand total of 8 kilometers from where I was born. When I grew up in Maple, however, it was the township of Vaughan. There was a population of about 1,500 people, and there was farmland all around us. In fact, I remember when the big chicken barn north of where Wonderland is now burned to the ground. And I remember the entire town smelling like Swiss chalet for about 3 days. However, I digress. Maple was a small community 50 years ago, but more now than ever, I appreciate the opportunity to grow up in a small town. We knew so many people in our community, and so many were considered good friends. We certainly knew all the people who lived next door, and all the people who lived on our block. And everyone knew everyone, and as a child, this made us feel very secure and comfortable. The bonds that we needed in our community were everywhere, and everywhere we turned. But the whole GTA has grown, in fact I guess it's now called the GTHA, in the past decade. Though it's the strong connections that we once had have changed. I often think that a contributing factor to this change in community connectedness might be the rise in communication technology that we have today. I think it's really ironic that while technology has opened up a good deal more lines of communication, we seem to value each of these individual interactions less. As a counselor, I do find it frustrating to have 2 cell phones, 2 landlines, Facebook and Facebook Messenger, Twitter, and email. And I promise if you contact me on any of those ones, I will return the call. It really is hard to keep up with monitoring all these lines of communication. And my teenage son, when I was telling him about this, told me that I simply needed to get over it. So my son and his generation have their own way of communicating, and I'm not sure anymore that my son is actually speaking my language when he's communicating with his friends via text or social media. It seems to me it's not really a language, it's more of an elaborate code that older people like myself were never meant to understand. And I often wonder in our Twitter-based 180-character world if our species is actually losing its ability to have an actual conversation. I wonder if this might impact our ability to build strong bonds with each other, but that's a subject for another day. But I think there's hope. As I said earlier, with all the challenges of our growing cities, there are a few things that we can do to ensure that we have strong communities. I recently had the pleasure of going to a talk about building great cities that people want to live in from former Toronto Mayor John Sewell. He gave many excellent examples how we can build an urban environment that fosters stronger connections. I won't go into all the detail he presented, but suffice it to say that I think we've learned a lot that works and doesn't work given our past 100 years of urbanization. One point that Mr. Sewell made that I found very interesting was the community benefit of a good transit system. This struck me, the community benefit of a good transit system. He hypothesized that people who regularly use transit learn patience, civility, and acceptance of people who do not necessarily look like themselves. These are all qualities that build stronger communities. By contrast, he said that commuting by car tends to create a disconnect between drivers and the real world as they travel in their metal and glass bubbles. Car use creates a more competitive feeling as one driver tries to get ahead of the other driver. And unlike transit users, Mr. Sewell implies, driving commuters are less patient and as a result have a much more exercised middle finger than transit users. Okay, the last part about the middle finger, he didn't say that. Mr. Sewell's a very dignified man, and I'm sure he would never say something like that. But he also said, and I agree, that cities have a range of recreational facilities, parks, and natural spaces, both for organized and unorganized recreation, it's a good thing. This is important in a city to promote stronger communities. Parks are gathering places for communities. Many good friendships have been made on soccer pitches, baseball fields, playgrounds, and hockey rinks for both kids and parents. In Richmond Hill, we recently built a beautiful community theater. But a building like this is not what defines a community. Rather, the fact that almost every night hundreds of people gather there to share an interest in a performer or a play. That's really the value that this building brings to my community. In Richmond Hill, we've also built a couple of dog parks. Now, I don't own a dog, but I will say this. Dog owners know more people than anyone else in the community. They walk their dogs, they meet their neighbors. When I visit these dog parks, I do see dogs frolicking off-leash with careless abandon, but what I also see is dog owners getting to know each other, sharing their dog owning experiences with each other. But to be clear, I'm not suggesting that dog ownership is the only way to strengthen a community. That would be discriminatory against cat owners. My wife is a cat person, and she would find this unacceptable. And for all of the men in the audience, you know what I'm talking about. In 2009, Richmond Hill unveiled its strategic plan, and this is a foundational document that guides how our community will develop over time. With over 2,000 hours of citizen time and input that went into the creation of this plan, and the voices of many citizens are captured in the final document. The title of the strategic plan in Richmond Hill is called "Where People Come to Build Our Community." And at the time, I remember thinking this was a somewhat awkward title, but I now realize it captures the important point of community building that our council wanted to emphasize. These are just a couple of examples of leadership that municipal government can provide to facilitate building stronger communities, but at the end of the day, it's up to each of us individually to accomplish this task. Building strong communities is really a grassroots effort, so many kind and generous individual actions move us in this direction every day in our communities. Neighbors care for neighbors in times of need. People volunteer to be a part of organizations that provide a benefit to the community. Coaches and teachers work with our children and teach the value of teamwork. And in Richmond Hill, volunteers in our community work for over 22,000 hours per year. And this statistics only is the tip of the iceberg because there are many more volunteers that contribute to other organizations not run by the town itself. There are also people in our community who pick up litter when they see it, people who express their views to council when they feel it necessary, and many other citizens who connect with neighbors over the fence and in coffee shops to create a better environment for us all. All of these actions and many others are things that individuals do daily to build community. Generally speaking, these people have one common idea in mind as they go about their work. They feel a hope, the best future that they can imagine. They realize that there are things that need to change, but instead of getting overwhelmed by the negative morass that sometimes swirls around us, they rise up and they make their corner of the world a better place. It seems like a long time ago, but in December of 2013, a significant event happened in my life, and it changed and solidified my sense of community and my resolve to contribute to building it. I had just been appointed as a Richmondville councillor for about 2 weeks, and was just settling into the responsibility that came with the job, but before Christmas, a freak winter storm dumped a great deal of freezing rain on our town. And I'm sure you all remember the ice storm of 2013. I woke up in the night as the ice started to come down. At about 2 a.m., there was a loud thud outside of the house. I went out into the icy cold evening to see what had happened, and there I met my elderly neighbor who was taking in the scene with me. A huge tree had fallen across the driveway. What I remember most about that evening, it was the sound of what sounded like a million crystal wine glasses tinkling, but contrasted with the periodic explosion of trees falling around the neighborhood. The next morning, we woke up to a calamity shared by the community. It was really sad and overwhelming to see our 40 and 50-year-old trees that lined our streets destroyed in a heartbeat. Walking down the road the next morning, I clearly remember feeling an overwhelming sense of responsibility. How are we going to get through this as a community? However, I continued walking, and I witnessed many individual acts of community effort and excellent examples of selfless giving by individuals working with each other to help deal with the disaster. Neighbors with chainsaws were helping neighbors without chainsaws. People with electricity were offering to help neighbors that had lost their power, and many other acts of community. It was a sad day for our town and also many other parts of the GTA, but I believe the strength of our community helped us get through it, and further, I think the common challenge we faced strengthened the bonds between neighbors. I also think that building a strong community also means making sure that other groups are not left behind, unable to fully contribute. We have many community-based organizations driven by volunteers with no other mission than to make their community stronger. In Richmond Hill, we have 360 Kids, which is a youth shelter helping youth at risk of being homeless. We have Yellow Brick House, it's a shelter supporting women and children who are suffering from domestic violence. And Home on the Hill is a new group providing support for our members of the community suffering from mental illness. And I would also add that Seed of Victory, who I did not have the pleasure of knowing before tonight, is also doing great work in our community. Helping orphans like we are doing tonight is a perfect example of supporting a group that needs our support. It's really important work, and I'm really inspired to be here to support it. These are only a few examples of groups doing great things, and there are many more that provide similar services. And they're all doing valuable work, providing the foundation for a strong community. There's also work that we can do as individuals on a larger scale to extend outside of our municipal borders. In Richmond Hill recently, a small committee that I helped lead hosted a sold-out community discussion about reconciliation with our Indigenous community. This event was called The Secret Path, Walking Toward Reconciliation. On a broad scale, this event helped foster a conversation and greater understanding of the issues faced by our Indigenous community in Canada. We are all quite proud of our country during Canada 150, and rightly so. But during this year, many people are coming to an increasing realization that we have more work to do to correct some less proud parts of our history. The treatment of our Indigenous population is but one of these areas that require our attention. So to wrap up, I think our view of the world fundamentally changed when we saw the first pictures coming back of the Earth from outer space. From that perspective of living on the ground, or from the perspective of living on the ground in a city or town as we do, we don't necessarily realize that at the end of the day, we're all on this tiny, fragile blue dot floating around in a vast, uninhabitable ocean in outer space. The first photos from space offered us a new perspective on the world and our place in it. These photos gave us a new perspective. We are interconnected and we need each other to survive. We are individually stronger when the group is stronger. It only makes sense that what we do, that we do whatever we can to ensure that we make our communities the strongest that they can be. I am proud of the fact this effort really begins in communities like ours. We take this task seriously, and I know the result is well worth the effort. So I'd like to thank you for inviting me to share my thoughts, and I would also like to thank you for attending this event. As I said above, I think that building community can be done by individuals, and coming together and supporting organizations like Seed of Victory is but one way to accomplish this goal. Thank you very much.
I want us to put our hands together. There is never enough that we could pay for the work of nonprofit organizations. It's a lot of sacrifice, labor, hard work that comes from people who are compassionate hearts and willing to put their hand to the will to make change happen. To all of our distinguished invited guests, I welcome you. My name is Dagmar. As he said, as a child I was always told life is whatever you make of it. I'm sure as many of you know, this is only partially true. It is true we are responsible for our actions and every cause has an effect. However, just like B.J. Neblett said, we are the sum total of our experiences. Those experiences, be they positive or negative, make us the person we are at any given point in our lives. And like a flowing river, those same experiences and those yet to come continue to influence and reshape the person we are and the person we become. None of us are the same as we were yesterday, nor will we be tomorrow. To introduce myself, as I said in the beginning, I'm Dagmar Koyi. Simply put, I'm a firm believer that God is interested in curing the ills of our society, and He does so through using ordinary men like you and myself. I like this quote from Sylvia Burwell, Secretary of the United States Health and Human Services. Day after day, ordinary people become heroes through extraordinary and selfless actions to help their neighbor. So we have all gathered today as ordinary individuals who care enough about the future of orphans, therefore birthing the Seed of Victory Foundation, a nonprofit committed to providing orphans and abandoned children with everyday necessities of life. Today, I hope I can demonstrate in my short time of speaking to you the reasons why organizations working towards helping children secure their future is important. I stand before you as an individual who once served as a counselor to Toronto's homeless youth population. During my time of service, it became more evident to me that the primary need of the homeless is a place to call home. The little things that we take for granted, like having an address to put on our resumes, or a place to resort to at the end of the day, a bed to call our own, is what many in our city lack and long for. Numbers in our city has skyrocketed, and on any given night, approximately 2,000 youths in Toronto are without shelter. A deep concern for young people in 2015 is what fueled the birth of the organization I launched called Rest Center, a nonprofit primarily engaged in interventions aimed at promoting transition to housing programs that provide diverse, multifaceted supports for youth leaving the foster care system in its preventative effort to end homelessness. It was Maya Angelou that said, if you do not like something, change it. If you cannot change it, change your attitude. And Gandhi said, become the change you want to see in the world. In our country, contrary to the stereotypes, the kids on the street are not on the street because they want to or chose to. Most have fled and have been forced out of their homes because they experience abuse and childhood trauma. Some 60% of homeless youth in our nation have been involved in the child welfare system. Without resources, family support, or the skills to live independently, kids can find themselves on the street where they can face exploitation and other dangers. Over the course of the year, the number of young people who spend some time homeless in Canada is as many as 40,000. On any given night, there are many as 7,000 homeless youth on the street nationwide. Tonight, join me as I take you to the story of Rebecca and Catherine. Rebecca and Catherine are fictitious names that have been given to secure the identity of these clients. In her own words, Rebecca said, "Two things happened when I turned 12. My father, who used to beat the hell out of us, left home, and my mom found a new partner who lived at home with us. When I turned 13, I was raped by my mom's boyfriend, and sexual exploitation continued regularly. He also abused my younger sisters as well. I told my mom, she did not believe. Instead, said I wanted to sabotage her happiness. I started not to come home and slept at friends' houses. No one cared. I was introduced to drugs at school. My friend said it would make me feel better. I began using drugs to the point that I became addicted. By age 15, I was completely out of the home and sleeping around with different guys to keep my drug habit and also for shelter. Eventually, I dropped out of school and left the suburbs for the city, where I met with more young people who were like me. I slept in abandoned houses and buildings. The cuts on my arm are from slashing up. I slashed myself to turn emotional pain into controllable physical pain. It's not usually to kill myself, but more of a method of coping with my pain. I don't do it much. If I have a bad weekend, I may just begin slashing my arms till I have about 50 cuts. Similarly, Catherine's story is a clear indication that childhood trauma was a direct result of her homelessness. Catherine had a normal family life until the age of 8, when her relationship with her dad became extremely volatile. It got to the point where they could not be in the same room together. Catherine said she blocked out most of these experiences because it was too traumatic. But the violence and the chaos in the home was unbearable. Catherine said, my dad used to drag me up the stairs by my head. He'd do really weird things like lock me out of the kitchen so I couldn't go and make myself something to eat. He used to call me pathetic, call me fat, and say I would amount for nothing. Catherine has complex mental health needs and developed an eating disorder which led to hospitalization on a number of occasions. Unable to live with her family and struggling to find support, Catherine turned to sofa surfing, often with strangers or sleeping on the streets when she had nowhere else to go. Catherine said sofa surfing isn't nice. You're constantly on the edge. You feel like a burden. Lack of self-worth, lack of finances, dehumanized. Catherine became a victim of several abusive relationships with men who were violent and older than herself. She was able to escape her last abusive relationship after being accepted into a shelter program in Toronto, where she had access to the care of supportive adults vested in her success. There are many stories like Catherine and Rebecca. Some of those Rebeccas we encounter on the streets, at the subway, in corridor corners daily. And you may ask, why is Rebecca on the streets and not in a shelter? Factually, 529 shelter beds in the city is not enough to address the estimated 2,000 homeless youth on the streets of our city nightly. Similarly, the work of one individual will not be enough to help orphans all around the world move from dream to destiny, a place of object poverty to a place of receiving necessary tools for successful life. Alone, we do so little. Together we can do so much, said Helen Keller. We can all help to make a difference in the life of those most vulnerable. You can start today by supporting the Seed of Victory Foundation. Albert Einstein, a literal genius that knew much about how the universe worked and was able to see into the vastness of space and make calculations that our modern day scientists today are still expanding on. He spent a lot of his time thinking about life and what it means. And in the grand scheme of things, he concluded, only a life lived for others is a life worthwhile. I reiterate the words of Mother Teresa. I alone cannot change the world, but I can cast a stone across the waters to create many ripples. Will you cast your stone today by supporting the effort of this great foundation? Thank you.
I want to sincerely appreciate your coming for this august occasion. Before I render the tribute, I'd like to acknowledge the paper presented by Doug McCoy,
beautiful paper. And here is the tribute to Susan Egoyibo and Emmanuel Osai Okolo, presented by me, Victoria Duru, her first daughter, on behalf of the family. I feel highly honored to stand before this distinguished audience to share the classic story of our beloved parents, Emmanuel Osai and Susan Egoyibo Okolo, whose legacy has given birth to the Seed of Victory Foundation. While alive, they not only told us, but also demonstrated that reaching out to the less privileged on the street mattered to them. Their ability to appreciate this fact was part of their uniqueness. I recall our dear mother, while we were growing up, telling us that it was her innermost feelings of compassion that made it possible for her to connect with the constituency of the rejected, the less privileged, and the poor. Therefore, the foundation of Seed of Victory is based on the generosity and liberal ideals of our beloved parents. Our dad, Emmanuel Osai Okolo, could not enter or leave a room unremarked. Yet he was not extravagant in manner of our appearance. In his short but remarkable life, he never did anything badly or half-heartedly. He carried into all his performance a certain inborn finesse and a sense of elegance. Given the man and the circumstance of his death, it would have been impossible for all those that knew him to react to his death in the same way. As it were then, the varied response to his transition would have pleased Dad enormously, for he enjoyed getting to his destination through different routes. The power of his life and personality was evident. We remember him fondly for his flame and passion to improve the circumstances of the less privileged. Looking back, our mother, Susan Egoyibo Okolo, was an icon, an Amazon, an Argonaut, whose life inspired ideas and provoked thoughts. She taught us to be loving, selfless, caring, passionate, resilient, devoted, industrious, respectful, principled, and to have faith in God. A profound lover of learning, a bridge builder with a stoic determination to give hope to the less privileged. This was her most enduring legacy. Mom was sweet and sociable. She was an achiever, a humanist, generous, and had an unequaled capacity for friendship. Widowed at the age of 32, our mom embarked on an almost impossible journey of raising 6 children alone. Many were skeptical of her attempt, but to underestimate our mom was to energize her resolve to prove skeptics wrong, and she did. She gave us hope by educating us and providing a roof over our heads. We have come to learn that one of life's greatest truths may be that everyone faces tragedy at some point in life. But learning to accept these tragedies, learning to accept that life is riddled with events large and small, events that you may never have control over, is perhaps the hardest lesson of all. In this classic fact, I have faith that no one is ever alone. It was a remarkable moment of pain to see a strong woman as her mother died, in spite of her resolve and unending appetite to live life to the fullest. It was the season for goodbye for our sweet mom in December 2016. It was with real sadness that we watched as this period of shared days came to an end. If destiny has conspired to make us orphans, the only important dimension in the complex psychological picture is to set up a foundation in keeping with our parents' vision of dedicated service to mankind. It is our resolve to reach out to orphans and other vulnerable children globally. In order to achieve this, we count on your support. It is our humble view that should this gathering do its duty to mankind by donating to the success of Seed of Victory Foundation, the whole of humanity will forever give you credit. We urge you, therefore, to exercise considerable faith in God and your confidence in our ability to actualize this dream. It is our desire to use the Seed of Victory Foundation with all its potentials as an instrument of social change. Already in Nigeria, precisely Lagos, the foundation has been reaching out to the less privileged children through donation of educational materials, food, clothing, medicines, and so on. Notwithstanding the constraints and challenges, the stakeholders of Seed of Victory Foundation believe in the potentials of the foundation. This assumption is predicated on the universal axiom that all great movements in history started with an idea, because ideas rule the world. Today, by the inauguration of our parents' dream and the vision of an eternal flame for the less privileged, the love of the Okolo family has come full circle. The pride our parents felt for us, we also feel in return for them. They too had made this journey we have just begun, hoping to find expected joy in the years ahead. I thank you for being part of the making of history today. God bless you all.
Zodiac TV.